The city was alive with noise and light even in the late hours. Neon signs blinked and shifted with colorful holograms that danced across tall glass towers. Above the dome roof, lightning flickered like quicksilver veins, and heavy rain drummed on the transparent barrier that kept the streets dry. It was the year 2349, and Nova York never truly slept. Alexander Reese walked with a steady pace through the central district. He was dressed in a dark coat lined with smart fiber, a coat that could change its temperature to suit the weather. People usually stepped out of his way without him asking. He was not just another citizen of the city. He was the CEO of Reese, Interstellar Technologies, one of the largest corporations in the sector and one of the richest men alive. But tonight, he had left his driver and security behind. He said he wanted to walk home after the late board meeting, though his assistant had given him a doubtful look. His mind was on work, on reports and numbers and upcoming projects, when he heard a sound that made him pause. It was a cry, not loud, but raw. It came from the far end of a quiet side street, where the neon signs did not reach. He turned his head and saw a faint blue glow from a flickering hollow lamp. Beneath it, two enforcer officers in black armor stood in the rain shadow of a broken canopy. They were speaking to a young woman who sat against the wall clutching a bundle close to her chest. Alexander slowed his steps. Something about the way she was holding the bundle made him look closer. Her clothes were worn, more patches than fabric, and her boots were falling apart. Her face was pale under the dirt, her dark hair tangled and wet from where the canopy leaked. Her voice trembled as she said again, "Please do not take my baby." The enforcers showed no change in expression. One of them tapped a data pad, checking a record. The other reached for the bundle. Alexander saw the woman pull it closer to her chest, almost curling around it. The sound of the rain outside the dome seemed louder, pressing in. He felt something stir inside him, something he had not felt for years. A memory of when his own son, Liam, had been just a newborn. His late wife had held their child the same way, with the same fierce protectiveness. Without thinking, Alexander walked toward them. His footsteps echoed on the wet pavement. The enforcers looked up, their helmets scanning him, and then their posture shifted. Recognition was instant. "Mr. Reese," one of them said in a flat tone. "This is an official matter." I can see that Alexander replied calmly. "What is the charge?" The officer with the datapad spoke without looking away from the screen. "Unregistered resident. No confirmed housing or income source. Possible stolen property." "Property," Alexander repeated. The officer nodded slightly toward the bundle. "That is not property," Alexander said. "That is a child. It is not registered in the City Core birth database, sir," the officer replied. "By law," Alexander held up his hand. He was not shouting. His voice did not need volume to carry weight. "I will handle this matter. Stand down." "Sir, we have protocols," the officer began, but Alexander cut him off with a single code phrase. "Corporate Executive Override, Reese Interstellar Level 1 Clearance, effective immediately." The officers stiffened. One checked the datapad. Again, saw the clearance authority, and gave a short nod. The other stepped back. "Very well, sir, but we will file the report." "You do that?" Alexander said. The officers left without another word, their boots splashing through the shallow puddles. The woman's shoulders were shaking, but she did not look up at Alexander. He crouched down in front of her. The rain from the leaky canopy dripped onto his sleeve, but he ignored it. "What is your name?" he asked. She glanced up, her eyes full of caution and exhaustion. "Ilara," she said softly. "And your child Alexander asked." She looked down at the small face nestled in the blanket. The baby was asleep, cheeks flushed from the cold. "Her name is Arya Ilara," said. Alexander studied them both. They were thin, pale, and clearly had not eaten well in days. He could see faint bruises on Ilara's arms, the kind that come from carrying. Too much weight for too long. "You have somewhere to stay?" he asked. "No," she said. "We just arrived in the city yesterday. I came from the outer colonies. Our ship was attacked. I lost everything." He could hear the quiet strain in her voice, the kind of tone that comes when a person is holding on by a thread. He thought about leaving her there, telling himself it was not his problem. But his mind kept going back to Liam, at home, safe and warm, never knowing this kind of fear. "Stand up," he said gently. Ilara hesitated, but then slowly rose to her feet, holding Arya close. "I will take you somewhere safe," Alexander said. "Why?" she asked, her voice still wary. "Because Kenny said simply. He tapped his wrist console, and a sleek black transport drone glided into view from the nearby street. The side door opened with a soft hiss. Ilara glanced between him and the drone, as if weighing whether this was a rescue or a trap. But the baby stirred, making a soft sound, and Ilara made her choice. She stepped toward the drone. Alexander followed, her in, giving the pilot AI a destination code for his private residence. The doors closed, sealing them in a quiet space lit by soft golden light. For the first time, Ilara's shoulders relaxed just a little. She looked out at the city as the drone lifted into the air, the neon lights spreading out like rivers of color beneath them. Alexander sat across from her, studying the woman and her child. He had no idea why he had stopped, why he had spoken up, why he was now bringing strangers into his home. All he knew was that when he had heard her voice in that dark street, something in him had refused to walk away. The transport drone moved smoothly above the streets of Nova York, weaving between tall towers and glowing signs. From the inside, the ride was silent except for the faint hum of the engine. Rain still fell on the dome high above, but here in the cabin, it was warm and calm. Ilara sat on one side of the seat, holding her baby close. Her eyes stayed on the window as if watching for something outside. Alexander sat across from her, his coat still damp from the leaky canopy. He could see she was tense, her body angled protectively toward the infant. When the drone entered the high-security airspace near the residential towers, the city lights grew softer. This was the part of Nova York where few could live. The buildings here had clean white walls with faint blue lights running along their edges. Gardens with living trees grew on rooftops. Ilara's gaze lingered on them, as if she could not believe they were real. The drone landed on a private platform halfway up a tall building. The doors opened, and warm air flowed in. A silent security drone hovered nearby, scanning for threats. Alexander stepped out first and offered a hand. Ilara looked at it for a moment, before carefully standing on her own. Inside, the building's corridors were wide, with soft lights in the floor and walls. The air smelled faintly of flowers. Ilara's boots made no sound on the smooth surface. She held Arya close as they reached a door that opened with a soft chime. The penthouse was spacious and filled with soft, indirect light. A wall of glass looked out over the city, and the rain above the dome made faint ripples of shadow on the floor. The room was warm, with pale furniture and shelves lined with small plants. From the far side of the room, a boy ran forward. He had dark hair like Alexander and a curious look in his eyes. He stopped a few steps away when he saw Ilara and the baby. "Liam, this is Ilara and her daughter Arya," Alexander said. "They will be staying with us for now." Liam nodded politely but kept watching the baby with interest. "Hello," he said quietly. Ilara gave a small nod in return. "Hello," she said. Alexander turned to a waiting household assistant robot, a slim machine with a soft voice. "Prepare the guest room and bring fresh clothes and food," he said. "Yes, sir," the robot replied, gliding away toward the hallway. Ilara stood near the edge of the room, still holding Arya. She did not move toward the seating area or set down her things. Alexander noticed this and kept his voice calm. "You can rest here. No one will harm you." Her eyes shifted to him, sharp and guarded. "You stopped the enforcers." Why he said nothing for a moment, thinking about the question. "Because it was the right thing to do," he answered. "The right thing?" Ilara repeated quietly, as if testing the words. He studied her expression. "You came from the outer colonies," he said. "Yes," she replied. "That is a long journey." "How did you end up here?" he asked. She took a slow breath. "Our colony was attacked. I was on one of the last ships to leave. We landed on a trade station, but I could not find safe work. Some people told me Nova York was a place to start over. They were wrong." Alexander listened without interrupting. He could tell she was giving him only part of the story, but he did not push. The assistant robot returned with a tray of warm food and a folded set of clothes made from soft fiber. Alexander stepped back to give her space. "Please eat," he said. Ilara hesitated, but when Arya stirred and whimpered softly, she sat down and began to eat slowly, her movements careful as if she did not want to seem greedy. Liam sat nearby, watching quietly. After a few minutes, Ilara spoke. "Again. The enforcers said my baby was unregistered. They wanted to take her." "Yes," Alexander said. "They would have taken her to a holding facility until they found a legal guardian." She looked at him sharply. "That means never seeing her again." "Sometimes," he admitted. Her hands tightened around the baby blanket. "That will never happen." Alexander saw the fierce light in her eyes. He had seen that same look in the mirror years ago when his wife had been in danger during a diplomatic mission. It was the look of someone ready to do anything for family. "You are safe here for now," he said. "But you should know the enforcers will file a report. Others may come looking for you." "I have nothing they want," she said quickly. "Are you certain?" he asked. Ilara hesitated for a fraction of a second before answering. "Yes." Alexander noticed the pause, but did not comment. He could feel there was more to her story, but trust was not something that could be forced. Later that night, after Ilara and Arya were settled in the guest room, Alexander stood by the large window. The city stretched far into the distance, the lights glowing like rivers of fire. Liam came to stand beside him. "Is she staying here forever?" Liam asked. "I do not know," Alexander said. "Why did you bring her here?" Liam asked again. "Because she needed help," Alexander replied. Liam nodded as if accepting that answer. Then he looked up at his father. "She is not like the people who usually come here." "No," Alexander said softly. "She is not." They stood in silence for a while, the rain above the dome whispering against the glass. In another room, Ilara held her baby close, listening to the quiet hum of the building. For the first time in weeks, she did not feel the cold bite of fear every second. But deep in her mind, she knew safety could not last forever. The morning light filtered through the tall glass windows of the penthouse, painting soft gold patterns across the floor. Outside, the city moved in its constant rhythm. Air vehicles glided between towers, while the streets far below bustled with people heading to work. Inside, the air was calm, almost too calm for Ilara. She had woken before the sun, a habit she had formed while living on the move. Even in safety, her mind told her to stay alert. Arya was still asleep in the crib the household assistant had set up in the guest room. Ilara stood near the crib, brushing a lock of hair from her daughter's face. The baby's breathing was slow and peaceful. It gave Ilara a brief moment to breathe herself. When she stepped into the living area, she found Alexander already awake. He sat at the long table, a steaming cup of tea in his hand, reading a series of holographic reports projected above the surface. The soft glow lit his sharp features, and his eyes moved quickly over lines of data. "Good morning," Ilara said quietly. Alexander looked up. Good morning. Did you sleep well better than usual? She admitted. He gestured toward the other end of the table. Sit. Eat. The assistant robot arrived almost instantly with warm bread, fruit, and tea. Ilara sat down carefully, unsure if she should start speaking or stay silent. Alexander closed the reports with a small hand motion. I have been thinking about your situation, he said. Ilara stiffened slightly. My situation, yes. You said you arrived from the outer colonies with no housing, no registration, and no work. The enforcers will not forget last night. The report they file will be read by more than just their department. Her fingers tightened around the cup. Who else would read it? There are people in this city who make it their business to know when unregistered refugees arrive, he said. Not all of them work for the government. Ilara looked down at her tea. I already told you I have nothing they want. I believe you have something far more valuable than you realize, Alexander said calmly. She met his gaze. What do you mean? I mean that surviving an attack on a colony like yours is rare. Someone may have a reason to want you gone. Her expression stayed guarded. And you think you can protect me, yes? He said. But protection comes with risk. Risk for me or for you? She asked. For both of us, Alexander said. Which is why I am making you an offer. She leaned back slightly, her eyes narrowing. What kind of offer? I want you to stay here, under my protection. In return, I need you to tell me everything about what happened to your colony. Every detail. Ilara's shoulders tensed. Why would you want to know that? Because I believe the attack on your colony was not random. And if I am correct, the people responsible are a threat to more than just you. Her thoughts began to race. She remembered the attack too clearly, the sudden alarms, the roar of weapons fire, the shadows of ships moving across the sky. She remembered the desperate escape, the small shuttle crowded with survivors, and the explosion that lit the void behind them. Why would a man like you care about what happened to a small colony on the edge of nowhere? She asked. Because I have seen this before, Alexander said. And every time, the attackers were part of something larger. If they are here in Nova York, I need to know. Ilara looked toward the window. The city outside looked peaceful, but she knew peace could vanish in seconds. She wanted to tell him everything, but fear gripped her. The more people knew, the more danger followed. If I tell you what I know, will you promise to keep Arya safe? She asked. Alexander's gaze did not waver. Yes. She studied his face, searching for any sign of a lie, but saw none. All right, she said quietly. I will tell you. But before she could start, the assistant robot entered. Sir, you have a call from Chief Inspector Vaughn. Urgent. Alexander frowned. Put it through. A small, hollow image appeared above the table. The inspector's face was lined and tired. Reese, I do not know what you did last night, but I am already getting pressure from above, Vaughn said. The report about that unregistered woman has been flagged by multiple departments. Someone wants her located quickly. Alexander's voice was calm. Which departments? Some are official. Some are not, Vaughn replied. I have never seen a case move through the system this fast. If I were you, I would be ready. The image flickered and vanished. Ilara's hands tightened around the edge of the table. They are already looking for me, she said. Yes, Alexander said. Which means you do not have much time to decide if you trust me. Ilara looked at Arya's empty crib through the open guest room door. Her daughter was still sleeping peacefully, unaware of the danger. She turned back to Alexander. You said you can protect us. How I have resources most people do not, he replied. Private security, encrypted safe houses, and more importantly, I know how these people operate. And in return, you want the truth about my colony, she said. Yes, because that truth could save more than just you. She took a slow breath. The decision weighed heavy. but she knew running alone would end in capture. Staying meant risk, but it also meant a chance to fight back. "All right," she said finally. "I will stay, and I will tell you what I know." Alexander gave a short nod. "Then we start now." The rain had stopped over Nova York, but the dome above the city still shimmered faintly with leftover moisture. From the high window of Alexander's penthouse, the towers stood like silent guardians against the sky. Ilara sat at the long table with a cup of tea untouched in front of her. Alexander sat across from her, waiting. The assistant robot had left the room to give them privacy. Liam was in his study room, working through a holographic lesson. Only the low hum of the city outside filled the air. "You said you wanted to know everything," Ilara began softly. "But I do not know where to start." "Start from the last day you saw your colony," Alexander said. Her eyes lowered to the table. "My colony was called Vale's Reach. It was small, a farming settlement on the edge of the outer spiral. We traded with nearby systems, nothing that would draw attention. Or so we thought." She spoke slowly, her voice steady but her hands curling slightly on the table. 3 months ago, a fleet came. No warning, no signals, just ships dropping out, of warp. They surrounded the planet before anyone could react. At first, we thought they were pirates, but they moved like soldiers. Alexander leaned forward. "Uniforms or markings, yes," she said, black with silver bands on the arms. I had never seen them before. Alexander's expression tightened. "Go on." "They began taking people," she continued. "Not to rob them, not to demand payment, but to pull them from their homes and scan them. They carried machines I had never seen. If the scan showed something they wanted, the person disappeared into their ships." Her breath caught for a second, but she pushed forward. "My husband was one of the first taken. I tried to find him, but the soldiers blocked every street." Then, someone shouted that they were taking the children next. She looked toward the guest room where Arya was sleeping. "I ran to the nursery. When I got there, I saw one of the soldiers scanning her. The device beeped. He turned toward me and said she was special. I grabbed her before he could finish and ran." Alexander's voice was calm but sharp. "What happened?" "Next, I met a group heading for the spaceport," she said. "They had a small cargo shuttle. We barely got into orbit before one of the enemy ships fired on us. The blast hit the back of the shuttle. We lost half the passengers." She stopped, her voice catching for a moment. "We jumped to a trade station. I thought we were safe, but 2 days later, people started asking questions about the baby. I kept moving, from station to station. Finally, I came here." Alexander stayed silent for a moment, then asked, "Did you ever find out why they wanted her?" Ilara hesitated. "I have a guess." "Tell me." "I think it is in her blood," Ilara said. "My husband worked in the colony's research lab. They were studying ways to adapt human DNA to survive extreme environments without heavy suits. If the baby was exposed to something before birth, maybe it changed her." Alexander considered this. "Or perhaps it is not adaptation they want, but what is stored in her genetic code." Ilara frowned. "What do you mean? If your husband's lab was working on high-level genetic changes, they may have hidden something inside the DNA sequence," Alexander said. "Information, technology designs, access keys. It is possible your child carries something that cannot be erased." Ilara's eyes widened slightly. "You think my baby has something like a data key inside her? It is possible," he said. "And you think whoever attacked my colony is still looking for her because of it?" she asked. "Yes," Alexander said. "And if they are here in Nova York, it means they have influence far beyond the outer spiral." Ilara felt the weight of his words. She had been running for months, never knowing exactly why she was hunted. Now the truth was beginning to take shape, and it was worse than she imagined. She looked out the window at the endless city. "If you are right, then hiding will not be enough. No, it will not." Alexander agreed. "Which is why you need to let me take control of this situation." Control, Ilara repeated. I can find out who they are and what they want. But I will need your trust and your permission to run a genetic analysis on Arya, Alexander said. Her instincts screamed to keep her child away from any machines, but she also knew she could not fight an enemy she did not understand. If you do this, will it put her in danger, she asked. It may draw attention, he admitted, but it will also give us answers. She took a slow breath. And if the answers bring more danger, then we face it. Prepared, he said firmly. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Outside, an airship passed by, its lights flashing against the glass. Ilara thought about the soldiers in black, the attack, the endless running. She thought about the way Alexander had stepped in without hesitation the night before. All right, she said quietly. You can run the analysis. Alexander nodded once, as if sealing a silent agreement. I will prepare the lab tonight. Before they could speak further, the assistant robot returned. Sir, there is a visitor at the security gate. They refuse to leave without speaking to you. Who is it? Alexander asked. A man named Cade Torrin, sir. He says it is about the woman and the child. Ilara's face went pale. Cade was one of the passengers from the shuttle escape. She had not seen him since they reached the first trade station. If he had found her here, others could too. Alexander's tone was steady. Keep him at the gate. I will speak to him there. He stood, his expression unreadable. Stay here. Do not open the door for anyone. Ilara nodded, holding Arya closer as Alexander left the room. She felt a cold wave of unease wash over her. The shadows from her past had followed her to the one place she thought might be safe. The security gate of the tower was not a place for uninvited visitors. It was guarded by drones, cameras, and scanning fields that could detect hidden weapons or illegal tech. Yet Cade Torrin stood there, as if he belonged, hands raised slightly, showing he was unarmed. Alexander stopped a few meters from the gate, studying the man. Cade looked older than the last time Ilara had seen him. His hair was shorter, and a faint scar ran down his cheek. His eyes darted toward the cameras before focusing on Alexander. You are Alexander Reese, Cade said. That depends on who is asking, Alexander replied. I am not here to cause trouble, Cade said quickly. I came to warn her about what Alexander asked. Cade's voice dropped lower. They are here. The same soldiers who attacked Vale's Reach. I saw them at the docks this morning. They are asking about a woman with a child. Alexander kept his face calm. And how do you know they mean her? Because I heard them say the child's name, Cade said. Arya. The name tightened something in Alexander's chest. He stepped closer. How do they know you? I was on the shuttle with her. Cade said. We both escaped that night. I kept moving, same as her. I stayed in the outer stations. But when I saw the soldiers here, I knew she would be in danger. Alexander considered the man's words carefully. If Cade was telling the truth, this meant the enemy was already moving through Nova York's streets. If Cade was lying, it meant someone had sent him to find their location. Either way, the situation had changed. Stay here, Alexander said. He turned and walked back toward the lift without looking back. When he returned to the penthouse, Ilara was standing near the window, holding Arya close. What did he say? She asked immediately. He says the soldiers are here, Alexander replied. He says they are asking about you. Ilara's face went pale. That means they found the city. It means they found you, Alexander said. Which means we need to leave now. Leave, Ilara repeated. Where I have a private shuttle hidden in the lower docks, Alexander said. It is registered under a false ID. We can reach one of my orbital safe houses in less than an hour. Ilara looked toward the guest room, then back to Alexander. And Cade, we do not know if we can trust him, Alexander said. He will not come with us. Before she could respond, the building's security alarm gave a short warning tone. The assistant robot appeared, its voice calm but urgent. "Sir, there are unidentified craft entering this district. Scanners detect armed personnel." "How long until they reach us?" Alexander asked. "Estimated 5 minutes, sir," the robot said. Alexander moved quickly, crossing the room to a wall panel. With a touch, the panel slid open to reveal a storage compartment, containing 2 small cases. One was filled with emergency supplies, the other with encrypted data chips. "Take this," he said, handing the smaller case to Alara. "Do not open it unless I tell you." She clutched the case in one arm while holding Arya. In the other, Liam appeared from the hallway, his schoolwork forgotten. "Father, what is happening?" "We are going on a trip," Alexander said firmly. "Stay close to me." The assistant robot led them to a private lift that bypassed the main building exits. The walls of the lift were smooth black glass, and the descent was almost silent. Alexander checked a wrist display showing security feeds from the tower. Drones hovered in the air outside, and figures in black armor were moving on the nearby rooftops. They reached the underground dock. A sleek silver shuttle waited, its engines already warming. Alexander ushered Ilara and Liam inside before taking the pilot's seat. The doors sealed shut, and the shuttle lifted smoothly off the platform. As they moved through the dim tunnels toward the exit bay, a voice crackled over the comm. "This is Nova York Port Authority. Unregistered shuttle, you are ordered to halt for inspection." Alexander kept his voice calm. "Override code, Re-7 Delta, immediate clearance." There was a pause. Then the voice returned, less certain. "Clearance granted. Proceed." The shuttle emerged into the night air above the city's lower levels. Alexander set a course toward the outer perimeter of the dome. The city lights blurred beneath them as the engines pushed faster. Alara sat with Arya in her arms, watching the city fade behind them. Liam sat beside her, looking both nervous and curious. "Where are we going?" he asked. "Somewhere safe," Alexander said without turning. A sudden warning tone filled the cockpit. "Tracking alert. Incoming pursuit craft." Alara leaned forward. "How many?" "3," Alexander said. "Armed. Can you outrun them?" she asked. "Yes, but not if they disable the dome exit," Alexander replied. The shuttle shot forward, weaving between transport lanes and narrow gaps between towers. The pursuit craft stayed close, their black hulls barely visible against the dark sky. Alexander tapped a control, and 2 small drones launched from the shuttle's underside. They streaked back toward the pursuers, releasing bursts of electromagnetic interference. One of the pursuit craft broke off, its systems scrambled, but the other 2 pushed harder. "We will reach the dome exit in 2 minutes, Alexander said. "What if they close it?" Alara asked. "Then we use the emergency bypass." "But it will trigger alarms across the city," Alexander replied. The shuttle approached the dome's edge, where a section of the barrier shimmered faintly. This was a transport gate, normally used for cargo and supply ships. The control tower's lights flashed red and a warning sounded through the comm. "Unauthorized departure detected. Prepare to be stopped." Alexander entered the bypass code without hesitation. The dome's energy field flickered, and a narrow gap opened. The shuttle shot through, leaving the city behind. Once outside, the blackness of space spread around them, broken only by the glow of distant stars. The pursuit craft hesitated at the dome's edge, unwilling or unable to follow through the emergency opening. Alexander eased the shuttle's speed, but his eyes stayed on the scanners. "They will try again," he said. "We need to reach the safe house before they regroup." Alara held Arya close, her heart still racing. She looked at Alexander. "You just risked everything to get us out." He glanced at her. "I told you I would protect you, and now," she said, "the danger is no longer just outside the city. It is following us into space." The shuttle moved slowly toward the orbiting station known as Haven Point. The stars stretched across the black sky, peaceful and calm. Inside, the small group sat quietly. The tension from the chase was finally fading, replaced by a gentle hope. Alara held baby Aria close. The little girl was asleep, her tiny hands resting against her mother's chest. Ilara's eyes were soft, but her thoughts were deep. She looked around at Alexander and Liam. This small family, once strangers, was now the center of her world. Alexander glanced over at Alara. He spoke softly. "We have done what we can for now. The syndicate's power is broken, but it will take time for everyone to know the truth." Ilara nodded. "And we need to find a place where Arya can grow up safe." Liam smiled, his dark eyes bright. "Maybe one day she can visit my school." Alexander smiled back. "She will have that chance. We all will." The shuttle docked smoothly at Haven Point. The station was small but well-equipped. Its walls were lined with plants that glowed softly under the station's lights. It felt warm and alive, a safe place after so many months on the run. A team of station guards welcomed them. They had received the broadcasts about the syndicate's crimes and were ready to help. Alexander's private security team arrived soon after, setting up systems to protect the family and monitor any new threats. That evening, the four sat together in a small living room. Liam showed Alara and Alexander how to play a simple game on his holotable. Arya's soft coos filled the space, and for a while, the past troubles felt far away. Later, Alexander turned to Alara. "I want you to know, you have a place here. You and Arya are part of this family now." Alara smiled, tears coming to her eyes. "Thank you for everything." Alexander reached out and gently took her hand. "We will face the future together." The days that followed were filled with new challenges, but also new joys. Ilara began sharing her story with trusted friends on the station, helping others who had escaped from dangerous places. Liam found new friends, and Alexander focused on rebuilding trust in his company and the community. One morning, Ilara stood on the station's observation deck. The blackness of space stretched endlessly before her. She thought about the journey, the fear, the running, the loss, and now the hope. Arya woke in her arms, opening her eyes and looking up at her mother. Ilara smiled and whispered, "You are safe now, little one. We will keep you safe." Alexander joined them on the deck. "The galaxy is changing," he said. "People will hear your story, Alara. It will inspire others to stand against those who use fear and power to control." Ilara nodded. "And we will keep fighting for a better future." As the sun of a nearby star began to rise over the station's horizon, the family stood together. They were no longer just a homeless woman, a single-dad CEO, and a lost child. They were a new family, united by choice and hope. The future was uncertain, but they would face it side by side. The stars outside continued to shine, endless and bright, just like the new beginning waiting for them all. The small crew had been traveling through the asteroid belt for 2 days now. The journey was rough and dangerous. Large rocks drifted silently past the ship's windows, some so close that the hull sensors blared warnings. Alexander kept the main controls steady, guiding the ship along a narrow path through the debris field. Every move mattered, because one wrong turn could send them into a deadly collision. Ilara sat in the co-pilot seat, holding her baby close. Liam was strapped safely into the rear passenger seat, his eyes wide as he watched the stars and asteroids pass by. The hum of the ship's engines was the only sound for a while, but beneath the calm surface of space, all of them knew danger was near. The syndicate would not give up so easily. Alexander's main concern was timing. They had one destination, the outer station known as Haven Point. It was far away from the Syndicate's main routes and hidden behind dense asteroid clusters. Haven Point was one of the last free zones in this part of space, and it could be their safe haven if they reached it. Just when Alexander thought they might make it without trouble, the ship's warning systems began to beep rapidly. A flashing, red light appeared on the radar screen. "They found us," Alexander said, his voice low but steady. Ilara's heart raced. She leaned forward, scanning the radar. Several blips were closing in fast. Syndicate ships. They were small but fast, perfect for hunting in dangerous areas like this. "What do we do?" Ilara asked, keeping her voice calm for the sake of the baby. Alexander's fingers moved over the controls. "We fight, but we fight smart." He sent a coded signal to his company's defense satellites stationed nearby. These were prototypes, untested in real combat, but right now they were the only chance. Within minutes, the satellites came online, their positions shifting silently in space. The Syndicate ships appeared ahead, black and sleek with glowing red engines. They moved in a sharp formation, surrounding Alexander's ship from three sides. A voice crackled over the comms. "Hand over the woman and the child. Do this, and we might let the rest of you live." Ilara's eyes narrowed. She did not speak, but her grip on her baby tightened. Alexander didn't even bother to respond. He flipped a switch, and the defense satellites locked onto the enemy ships. Suddenly, bright streams of energy shot across the asteroid belt. The Syndicate ships swerved, trying to dodge the blasts. Two of them clipped the edges of drifting rocks and exploded into bright clouds of light. The rest scattered, breaking their tight formation. "Hold on," Alexander said, guiding the ship into a narrow passage between two huge asteroids. The Syndicate ships followed, but now the satellites had a clear shot. Another beam fired, taking down a third enemy. One of the remaining Syndicate ships accelerated, pushing past the others. It fired a pulse wave that hit Alexander's ship. The lights flickered and the control screens glitched. Ilara could smell faint smoke from one of the rear panels. "We lost the rear shield," Alexander said, trying to reroute power. "Ilara, I need you to access the data key. If we use it now, we can end this for good." Ilara hesitated. The data key was hidden deep in her child's genetic code, and unlocking it was risky. But there was no time to think twice. She pulled a small scanning device from her bag, something she had been hiding since the day Alexander found her. She activated it and gently placed it near her baby's arm. A soft light scanned over the skin, retrieving the coded sequence hidden within the child's DNA. The device beeped, and a stream of encrypted data appeared on its tiny screen. Ilara transferred it to Alexander's console. Within seconds, the data linked with the satellites, triggering an automatic transmission. Across every major star system, the Syndicate's hidden records, proof of their crimes, began to broadcast. As the data spread, Syndicate ships everywhere were flagged by law enforcement and bounty hunters. The enemy captains knew they had seconds before every force in the galaxy turned on them. The ship that had damaged their shield suddenly broke away, fleeing into open space. The others followed, abandoning the chase. The belt grew quiet again, except for the steady hum of the engines. Alexander leaned back in his chair, taking a long breath. "It's done. They'll never be able to hide again." Ilara's eyes softened. "So many people will be free now. They will never have to run like I did." Liam looked at her with a small smile. "Does that mean we can go home?" Alexander nodded. "Yes, Liam, we can go home." But home was different now. It wasn't just the penthouse in Nova York. It was the people on this ship, a small family brought together by danger, trust, and choice. As they left the asteroid belt and the dark shadow of the Syndicate behind, Alexander felt something he had not felt in a long time. Hope. For Ilara, for her child, for Liam, and for the many others who would see a brighter future because of what they had done. The stars ahead seemed just a little brighter than before.